When it comes to members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Mantis ranks up there as one of my favorites. But here's the thing, she is a terrible and annoying character in the comics. What's interesting is that her creator Steve Englehart wanted Mantis to be one of, if not the most important character in the Marvel Universe. You heard me right, Mantis of all characters is supposed to be the center of everything. The reason that never happened though is because she was so widely disliked that no other writer wanted anything to do with her. But that didn't stop Steve from trying his best anyway by shoving her into every single book that he possibly could, going so far as to put her in comics at completely different companies without any approval from Marvel. Hello and welcome to Comic Drake, where I talk about comic books and my name is Drake. Let's talk about it. But before getting too far into things, I want to give a big thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Dave. I love that it sounds like some dude named Dave just paid me for a shout out. I recently went back to school, which means that I've been putting out less videos. But the downside is that cash has been pretty tight lately. But that's where a cool banking app like Dave helps out. With their extra cash feature, you could get up to $500 instantly with no interest, late fees, or credit check. Essentially, you're just getting a little help from the future version of you, which means you have more money to fill your tank, catch up on bills, or get your car repaired without having to wait for the next paycheck. Millions have already gotten the help they need with extra cash, and you can too by downloading Dave today at dave.com/comicdrake. Once again, that is dave.com/comicdrake. Sign up for an extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve. Member FDIC. Mantis made her first appearance in Avengers number 112 in 1973 and was created by Steve Englehart and Don Heck, but mostly Steve Englehart. She was the girlfriend of Swordsman, a failed supervillain that fled to Vietnam and spent his days drinking away in a depressed stupor. It's here that he met a prostitute named Mantis, who helped Swordsman get back up on his feet and became his lover. By today's standards, this origin story can come across as demeaning and stereotypical. But considering that the United States had just pulled out of the Vietnam War earlier that year and the country was known for the large sex industry that popped up during it, it's not all that surprising that this was the backstory that she was given. Though, to give credit where credit is due, Steve Englehart really seemed to care about empowering Asian characters in comics, having been the creator of Shang-Chi and also portraying Mantis as more than capable of taking care of herself through her martial arts and empathic abilities. Mantis made herself known to the Avengers by helping the Scarlet Witch take down a bunch of robo-racists that were harassing her over dating the Vision. After their team up, the two walk on over to the Avengers mansion, but Captain America is justifiably pissed off that this unauthorized person was allowed to walk into their headquarters with no questions asked. And those concerns were pretty warranted since Mantis let the Swordsman follow right behind them, and he's like, "Hey guys, real sorry about trying to kill y'all a bunch. But can me and my girlfriend join your team?" "No, absolutely not." "Sure, sounds good. The Swordsman deserves another chance." "Remember, Captain, we are the Avengers, not the Revengers." Fine, I guess I'm outvoted. I also like that during this whole exchange, Iron Man's helmet has an itty bitty little smile. Now that they're members, Mantis kisses every single man on the team, except for Black Panther. Look, times were different, but it's a real shame because the first interracial kiss in a mainstream comic wouldn't happen for another 4 years when Iron Fist and Misty Knight lock lips. Even a little peck here would have been a really progressive move and could have easily been gotten away with because once again, she kisses every single other man on the team. But why do that in the first place? See, Englehart deliberately created Mantis to be a femme fatale that would try to seduce all of the men and sow chaos within the group. And boy howdy did she start real quick about sowing chaos, because she summoned the evil lion god of Wakanda, who the team had failed to defeat just 2 issues prior. Acting as the god's crony, Mantis single-handedly took out both Thor and Captain America during the fight, and this is with 0 godly power-ups or anything like that. It is her pure natural strength. Ultimately though, she and Swordsman double-crossed the god and helped the Avengers contain it once and for all, claiming that the deception was necessary to help take him down, but Cap was skeptical nonetheless. Mantis being this absurdly powerful is just one of the many ways that she is presented as the perfect human being, and that is not hyperbole, she is literally described as such in a later issue. During this time, Steve Englehart was also writing the Defenders comic, and came up with the idea to have his 2 teams fight each other. But I'm gonna spare you the details about that crossover because frankly it doesn't matter in terms of the in-character history of Mantis. The long and short of it is that Loki and Dormammu manipulated both teams into building a big evil fleshlight for them. But this event was significant because it radically changed the course of Mantis' entire character moving forward, marking the turning point of Englehart becoming fully obsessed with his creation, and essentially turning the Avengers comic into Mantis and Friends.
I wanted someone to shake up the Avengers, so I came up with a femme fatale. But right after I did, I also came up with the Avengers Defenders clash, and I needed to use my femme as a solid team player, not a disruptor. I found that interesting, a character I'd created for a purpose who now had no purpose. And as a young writer exploring my parameters, I started letting her tell her own story. Meaning every issue, I'd tell my overall Avengers story with my various character developments, and then things would happen that she had to react to.
The Avengers ended up fighting an evil team, which led to Mantis getting injured. And while in recovery, the group realized that they don't actually know anything about her. So they asked Swordsman, hey, what's her deal? And he replies, shit guys, you know what? I never actually asked her anything about herself. Though once she's up and at him again, Mantis comes to help out her teammates, but is confronted by the villain Libra, who reveals that he is actually her father. He was a soldier in Vietnam that had a kid with a local, but the lady's brother didn't approve and tried to kill them. Libra and his daughter fled into the jungle, and they came across the temple. This was the home of the priests of Palma, outcast members of the alien Kree race who took the child in. As she grew up, Mantis was trained in the ways of martial arts by the priest and was also worshipped by them because she was prophesied to be the celestial Madonna who would one day give birth to the Messiah of the universe. Though she doesn't actually remember anything about that because the priest had mind wiped her so she could learn about humanity by living amongst normal everyday people. After that exposition dump revealed that her entire life was a lie, Mantis fell into a blind rage, and it took all of the Avengers at once to restrain her, and she defeated them all at the same time because remember, she is apparently the strongest Avenger. When the dust settled, Mantis lost interest in Swordsman, probably because he never actually asked her anything about her personal life, and she started to play homewrecker with Vision since his girlfriend was busy with her new magic teacher. Now, Mantis already wasn't subtle about her intentions, but when she straight up told the swordsman that she didn't love him anymore, Mantis immediately walks over to Vision's room to try to seduce him. She pulls Vision in for a kiss, saying, "As an empath, I know you want me." And then Vision basically replies, "Then as an empath, you should have sensed how much I didn't want to hear that." But before she could reply, Kang the Conqueror shows up out of nowhere. He knows all about the prophecy and has narrowed down the location of the Celestial Madonna to the Avengers Mansion. He really wants to be the Messiah's father, so he kidnaps all the women in the house in an attempt to hedge his bets and impregnate them all at once. That's fucked up. Kang gets his ass handed to him, and in the process, it's revealed that Mantis is the one true Madonna. But in a final gambit, Kang declares that if he can't be the Messiah's father, then no one can. But before he can land the killing blow, Swordsman jumps in the way and dies in his ex-girlfriend's stead. This is all super tragic and everything, but at the funeral, the narration box straight up called Swordsman a lifelong loser. The Avengers bury their fallen comrade at the temple where Mantis was raised. But get this, he's resurrected as a goddamn tree person. So, the priests of Palma were guardians of the Kotati, an alien race of tree people that their ancestors had tried to wipe out thousands of years ago. The tree man said that it is his destiny to father the Messiah, and since she can't fuck a tree, he reanimated her dead boyfriend's corpse and put his brain into it. Luckily, Mantis was into it, and the two of them decided to get married right then and there. But a few hundred feet away, Vision proposed to Wanda, and when they came over to announce their news, the whole team is like, hell yeah, double wedding. Immediately following the ceremony, Mantis and the tree dude abandoned their physical bodies to go have soul sex out in space, thus completely defeating the need for him to have reanimated Swordsman's corpse in the first place. Whatever, end of story. Steve Englehart ended up leaving Marvel a few years later in favor of DC Comics, and allegedly a fan came up and said, "Wait, since you're not at Marvel anymore, does that mean that we're never going to see Mantis again?" And Steve replied, "I got you, bro," and he made the completely 100% original character, Willow. She's an empathic martial arts master that is pregnant with the Messiah of the universe, and she also has the exact same unique speaking pattern as Mantis. She's also green now. Why? It is never explained. She only appeared in this one issue, and it really wasn't all that big of a deal, and there wasn't anything special about it. But because he had gotten away with it once, Englehart was determined to do it again.
I had a lot of fun with that Justice League story where this alien woman shows up and says, "I can't tell you where I come from, I can't give you my history, but here I am." And that was fun. So I said, well then I'll put her into everything that I ever do.
When Steve went over to Eclipse Comics to create his book Scorpio Rose, you better believe that Mantis was brought along for a cameo. Now going by Lorelei, she's just a green MILF raising her space son in the suburbs. The name of her neighborhood? Willow Mantis Heights. Again, she just appeared in one issue, and when Englehart returned to Marvel, he brought his favorite girl back with him. What's interesting though is that the company completely acknowledged the character's non-Marvel appearances, and officially listed both Willow and Lorelei as aliases for Mantis in her entry in the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. When Mantis came back to Marvel, she kept her green skin, but the official explanation is that when she had her son through the soul sex, she grew a plant body so that she could have a physical womb. Flashback to the Scorpio Rose cameo, confirming that she raised her son on Earth for a little bit, but then we find out that the Qvortrup requested him to come live with them, thus freeing up Mantis to go to space and have an interplanetary hot girl summer. Basically what happened is that as soon as Englehart got his hands on the Silver Surfer comic, he broke up the Surfer and his longtime lover to have him start dating Mantis 2 issues later. By the way, this is the same woman that the Surfer gave up his life to protect by becoming the Herald of Galactus. Fortunately, this didn't last too long, because a bunch of evil dudes captured both Mantis and his ex in exchange for the Infinity Stone that he had. The Surfer made the trade, but when he touched the bubble that contained the 2 women, it exploded, and he was only able to save his ex. Oh, but don't think that was the end of Mantis, because if Steve is writing a book, you better believe that she'll be coming back and then shoved right into the center. This time, it was in the West Coast Avengers, where she woke up back in the suburbs with no memory of anything that happened before she fucked off to space with the tree dude. Oh, and instead of being freaked out that she now has green skin, we learn that she can revert back to her original skin tone anytime that she wants. Not knowing what to do, Mantis sought out the help of the West Coast Avengers, who drop everything that they're doing to help her. The team takes her to the temple where she was raised in order to find clues, only for swordsmen to come back to life and kill her. Alright, so try to follow me here. As soon as she stabbed, Mantis, but in a different body, rose up from a nearby grave, because it turns out that when she was partying with the Silver Surfer and got blown up, her spirit came back to Earth because her real body was in suspended animation ever since she left to go have soul sex, and at long last, she's actually returned back to normal. Got it? Too bad, because that's retconned later, so none of that matters. Over the next year, Mantis would make several small appearances in the other Marvel books that Englehart was writing, but when she reunites with the Surfer, Mantis essentially killed herself so that her soul could go back to drifting through space. This was one of the last things that Steve did before leaving Marvel yet again. It's as if he said, "Fine, I'm leaving, but I'm taking my fantasy girl with me." Though surprisingly, Englehart didn't use Mantis in more of his non-Marvel work at the time, and instead, she made an appearance in the infamous storyline Avengers: The Crossing. The book was dogshit, and a lot of the heroes were drastically written out of character, with Mantis now being the wife of Kang the Conqueror. You know, the dude that kidnapped and tried to sexually assault her. We really don't need to talk about that book though, because it was so widely hated that it was retconned to oblivion, with it being explained that that Mantis was actually an imposter. But you know what's funny? This was the first time that anyone other than Steve had written his precious character, and it was a major reason why he came back to Marvel once again.
Tom Brevoort came to me and said, "People have really screwed up since you left. What's happened to Mantis has not been done very well. I'd like you to come back and write what turned out to be Avengers Celestial Quest, which is where you can really establish who she is and what she's supposed to be." So okay, I did that.
Avengers Celestial Quest. This book sucks too. It is once again another comic that revolves around Mantis, and we found out that when she exploded in the 80s Silver Surfer comic, she had actually shattered into multiple phantom forms that faded from memory as soon as she left. This was basically an explanation as to how she could appear in every single book that Steve was writing at the time, sometimes at the same time, and why nobody remembers her or references her. It's not because she was an insufferable character that nobody liked or wanted to write. It's because she was actually 5 ghosts. Thanos is going around killing these phantom forms, which fuses her back into one being, and to save herself from complete annihilation, she meets back up with the Avengers. Mantis gives a recap of her whole life story in order to bring the readers back up to speed. Though I will say, one thing that I do like is that when we go back to the Scorpio Rose flashback, her neighborhood is called Willomantic this time. It's a little less on the nose than Willomantis, and I appreciate it. I also just love this panel because her kid, who we now know is named Sequoia, just looks like a small man. He straight up looks like he has a desk job, 3 kids, and plays pickleball on the weekend. Speaking of, the kid has grown into an angsty teenager, and Thanos wants to kill him as well, so it's up to Mantis and the Avengers to fly to the Qvortrup homeworld in order to protect him. On the flight over, Mantis found out that Vision and Scarlet Witch had broken up, so she makes a move and the two start hooking up, all while Vision's ex-wife was less than 100 feet away. Really though, that's all the details that are worth mentioning here. Celestial Quest is yet another inconsequential comic that is almost never brought up again, and at the end of the book, everything is set back to the status quo with Mantis leaving the Avengers and comics as a whole for about another decade. Basically, the entire point of this comic was to entice Steve Englehart to come back to Marvel for a little bit by letting him write about his waifu. Mantis eventually made her return when Marvel decided that the cosmic side of their universe needed to be a bigger part of their comics, and editor Andy Schmidt wanted to use this as an opportunity to bring back some long-forgotten characters.
I'm a really big fan of taking characters that aren't widely considered cool and bringing them back. If you don't know these characters already, but you want to like them, that's how I felt, then I think this is the right place for you. If you're an old-time fan of these characters, then this should be great for you too. They've been so underused of late. I think they'll play well for everyone.
And you know who weren't considered cool? Characters like a big tree monster, a talking raccoon with guns, an earthling space adventurer, and of course,
Mantis.
Because of these characters' unpopularity and obscurity, the writers were able to more or less alter them however they wanted, and Mantis was arguably the most reworked. She lost the ability to change her skin color, so now she's just straight up green. Also, instead of them being strands of hair or part of a headband, Mantis's antennae were completely attached to her head with no given explanation. On top of that, she is a significantly more powerful telepath and gained the abilities of pyrokinesis and future vision. All of these rejuvenated space characters found themselves in a Kree prison and are recruited by Star-Lord to take part in a special task force to take on an invading techno-organic species. In order to stay invisible to the enemy, this strike force needed to be technology-free, which makes it great that Mantis relies solely on mental powers and martial arts. After the war, the unit proved to be a great asset, which is why most of its members immediately turned around and formed a brand new group that was dedicated to taking on galactic-scale threats called the Guardians of the Galaxy. That being said, Star-Lord wanted to assemble the team as fast as possible, so he had Mantis psychically manipulate everyone's minds so they were more likely to come along, which was set up nicely because Mantis was seldom out in the field. She instead stayed back on the ship, handling communications, intel, and essentially acting as the group counselor. However, when the team heard about Mantis's mental meddling, many of the members left. But that really doesn't matter too much because the Guardians disbanded shortly thereafter when Star-Lord seemingly died. Of course though, this is comics, so when he came back from the not dead, Star-Lord reformed the Guardians. But Mantis was nowhere to be seen. She only popped up to help for like a couple of pages, but that's about it. And then she eventually showed up for a couple more pages as a member of a team that was made up of other former Guardians. But again, that was it. Now I'm sure there might be some of you guys that are wondering, well, what happened to her kid? Isn't he supposed to be this big messiah of the universe? So after not appearing in the comics for about 2 decades, Sequoia came back with a massive glow up. He's turned the Kotati into a warmongering race that is trying to get revenge on the Kree by straight up killing all animal life in the universe, which is a bit of an overcorrection. The Avengers call in Mantis to try to talk some sense into her son, but that doesn't work, leading to a massive and bloody conflict that ended with Sequoia being locked up, and Mantis once again not having a place in the world. That's why she's back as a supporting member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, where she fought a plant monster that is actually a secret 6th Phantom form that Thanos didn't kill and that nobody knew about. The story literally exists just so that she can absorb the Phantom into herself and revert to her original skin tone to look more like her MCU counterpart. And guys, that's where we're at the time of this recording. The worlds of Marvel and DC Comics are full of great characters, and while sure, we have gotten some great adaptations, the comics still have some of the best stories. However, for characters like Mantis, the adaptation is leaps and bounds better. The funniest thing about Mantis is that Steve Englehart tried his absolute hardest to make her the next big thing, but she was so wildly unpopular that no other writer wanted to touch her, and it's because of that unpopularity that she got completely reinvented and given a second chance in the Guardians of the Galaxy. So at long last, she is a household name, but not because of anything that Steve Englehart did. It's painfully ironic. But if you like this video, then please consider subscribing or even watching another one. I have plenty more videos on the Guardians of the Galaxy, but I would personally recommend checking out the video that I did on the strange and all over the place origin of Star-Lord. It's really fascinating. But anyway, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.